So learning target 7 says I can predict the effects of A, whether it's positive or negative, on a polynomial function, and I can recognize the end behavior of polynomial graphs given a function. So we're really talking about two things. What does A do, depending on if it's positive or negative, and what is the end behavior? So if we think about end behavior is exactly what it sounds like. It's how the function behaves at the end. Is it going up or is it going down? There's two ways to communicate that. You can either communicate that with words or you can communicate that with arrows. So you could say up, up. That means it goes up at one end and up at the other end. Or you could say down, down. That means it goes down at one end and down at the other end. You could say up, down. That means it starts up and then ends down. Or you could say down, up. That means it starts down and then ends up. So that's the first way to communicate end behavior, is with words. What is the function doing at the left end, and what is it doing at the right end? Another way is using arrows. Instead of saying up, up, you can have an arrow pointing up and an arrow pointing up. Or instead of saying down, down, you can have an arrow pointing down and an arrow pointing down. Instead of saying up, down, you have an arrow pointing up and an arrow pointing down. Or down, up, down, up. So two ways, both of them are perfectly acceptable ways to communicate end behavior. In Algebra 2, both ways are used, so you can use either way. So now what we're going to do is we're going to use this chart over here, and without graphing these functions, we're going to decide what it's doing based on if it's an odd or even function and what the A value is, because both of those things are going to tell us a lot about the end behavior. Even functions are functions that have a degree of 2, 4, 6, 8, dot, dot, dot. Even number degrees. Odd functions have a degree of 1, 3, 5, 7, dot, dot, dot. Odd number degrees. And if it has a positive A value, then whatever way it starts, that's the way it ends. If it starts going up, it's going to end going up. Or that's for an even function. And if it starts going down, it will end going down. So, sorry, that's the A value. If it's an even function, whatever way it starts, that's the way it ends. If it's an odd function, it starts and ends going different directions. Now the A value says at the end, it's going to be headed up. So if it's a positive A value, if it's an even function, that means they're both going to be going up because they're both the same. And if it's an odd function, it will be going up at the end, but it will be going down at the beginning. If A is negative, then it will be going down at the end. So if it's an even function, that means they'll both be going down because even functions, they both go the same. If it's an odd function, if it's going down at the end, it will go up at the beginning because odd functions go opposite directions in their opposite ways. So we know that this is an even function. If we look at this first one right here, because the degree is 4, so we're going to write an even function. So that means it's going to end like this. And the A value is negative. Okay? The A is just the coefficient on it's the leading coefficient. So it's negative. So if it's an even function with a negative A value, that means the end behavior is going to be going down and down. Or you could write it like this. This is an odd function because the biggest degree is 3, and 3 is an odd number. A is positive. So if it's an odd function with a positive A value, that means it's going to be ending up and starting down. So it's going to go down, up, just like the picture shows us for an odd function with a positive A value. Or you could write it like that. This next one is an even function because the biggest degree is 2 and 2 is an even number. The A value is the leading coefficient and that's 7 and it's positive. So if it's an even function with a positive A value, that means it's going to be going up and up. So I could write up, up, or I could write it like that. This is an odd function because the highest degree is 5 and 5 is an odd number. And the leading coefficient is a positive 5, so that's positive. So if it's an odd function with a positive A value, that means that on the left side it's going to be going down at that end, and on the right side it's going to be going up. Here, this is an odd function because the degree is 1 and 1 is an odd number. And the leading coefficient is a negative 6, so A is negative. So if it's an odd function with a negative A value, we're looking here, and that means it's ending going down, and because it's an odd function, they're going opposite directions. So if this side is ending down, that means it's starting going up. So the end behavior, you could write like that, up, down, or like that. And lastly, this is an even function because the biggest degree is 4 and 4 is an even number. And A is a negative 8. So an even function with a negative A value is going to start going down and end going down. Down, down. Or you could write it like that. So this chart summarizes what functions do, and there might be things that they do in the middle. It's most likely not just going to be a nice little curve. Maybe it does this. But whatever happens, if it's an odd function with a positive A value, it's going to be going down on the left side and up on the right side. Or if it's an odd function with a negative A value, it's going to be down on the right side and then opposite way up on the left side. Okay, these could do things like this. But no matter what it's doing here, if it's an even function that has a positive A value, it's going up on both ends. And here, if it's a negative A value, but an even function, it could do all kinds of things up here, but it's going down at both ends. And that's how you can tell without graphing how the A value and the degree of the function affect what the graph looks like.